Hey everybody, for anyone that doesn't know, my name is Carly and I am pregnant with twins via IVF. My husband and I struggled with fertility issues for a few years until we discovered that we had to end up going through and doing IVF. And so we transferred 2 embryos and ended up becoming pregnant with twins. I just wanted to go over my signs and symptoms and what I went through during my first trimester. I already filmed this video and new YouTuber fail. I saved it to my flash drive and it got super glitchy and weird and I could not save it. So I'm refilming now that I'm all the way already into my 3rd trimester. I'm 34 weeks. They tell me that new mom twin pregnancies are typically delivered between 33 and 36 weeks. And so we're kind of in the home stretch here. We'll see what happens. My doctor's going to let me go all the way to 38 weeks though before we do any inducing or scheduling of C-sections. So I don't know. We'll see. I could have either a day or 4 more weeks left. But hopefully I remember everything from the first trimester to help anybody else out there that might be pregnant with twins or planning on doing an embryo transfer and curious if you should do 1 or 2 and what it looks like during pregnancy with twins if 2 were to take. So I have notes here. Forgive me if you see me looking down and forgive me if I'm out of breath because these babies are around my lungs and it's really hard to breathe sometimes. So my first signs of pregnancy started happening about 3 days after our embryo transfer, which seems extremely fast. So apparently the embryos are about 3 weeks old once they're transferred. And so it only took about 3 days where I was grocery shopping and I started smelling just, I don't even know, the groceries in the meat aisle and things like that. And I started feeling nauseous. And at that point, I knew we had done the transfer, obviously, and I knew that nausea was one of the first symptoms of pregnancy. So to myself, I was like, am I really nauseous? Or am I telling myself I'm nauseous? You know, I was like, is this a head game or is this real? So then a few more days after that, I ended up getting nauseous again at the grocery store. And that's when I was like, okay, I think this might be real because it's happening again. So our doctor told us not to take any home pregnancy tests until I think it was like 6 days after the transfer. And then we didn't even go into his office until I want to say maybe a week and a half or 2 weeks after the transfer. You know, they want to make sure that it actually stuck because it's very common for, especially if you transfer 2, one of them not to stick right away or both of them not to stick. And so they don't want you to get false hope that, you know, you take a home pregnancy test, it says you're pregnant, and then you go into the doctor and you're not. So we listened to that. We didn't want, you know, any more false pregnancy tests that we could get, you know, could handle. So we had already taken so many. So we did wait the 6 days. And then once the 6 days hit, we did end up going ahead and doing a pregnancy test. And I think it was at night, like it didn't come in the mail on Amazon. So we had to end up going to the store and getting one. So it was actually at night, which is supposed to be your HCG levels aren't as detectable at night because you've been drinking water and your urine is just not as potent, I guess, if that's the right word to use. So it instantly showed that we were pregnant. And that's when I thought, oh, okay, so maybe it is twins if I'm that pregnant after only 6 days, if it, you know, showed right away. So, that was kind of just my own thinking. And then we went to the doctor, I don't know, maybe a week later or something like that. And they did end up telling us that, yep, there was 2 heartbeats and both babies stuck. So So the rest of the signs and symptoms started showing about 6 weeks gestation, which was really crazy to me because that's when you hear regular pregnancies start to show signs and symptoms, is about 6 weeks. But 6 weeks gestation for an IVF person is 3 weeks after your transfer because the embryos are about 3 weeks. So only 3 weeks after the transfer, I started feeling super nauseous. And the main sign was I was cooking some ground turkey for dinner, and I ended up having to run to the bathroom, projectile vomiting because of the smell of it. And from then on, I had a really bad meat aversion through the whole pregnancy. I ended up like putting the turkey outside, did not finish cooking it. Husband got home, told him he had to throw it away because I couldn't even handle cleaning the pan, and we had to go get takeout because that was not happening. So my whole first trimester, smells were really, really bad for me. Like any fresh vegetables smelled bad to me. Meat all smelled really bad to me. I could not have like turkey or chicken. If I had a burger, it was like I couldn't cook it myself. If we ate out, it was okay, but no really meat. And so I lived off of bread and like olive oil and vinegar and like plain pasta with cheese on top and butter, like literally the most plain stuff. And I was keto before I got pregnant. And so I went from like only meats and veggies to only carbs and fruits. But you gotta do what you gotta do, right? So let's see. Oh, another thing that smelled really, really bad to me was coffee. My husband got in this really bad habit of me bringing him coffee in bed because I would wake up at 3, 4 in the morning and couldn't sleep. And so I'd get up early and I would bring him coffee. Well, I ended up bringing him coffee, and the smell of it was so strong and so bad that I could not drink coffee myself. I couldn't make him coffee. I almost had him put the coffee maker in the garage. It smelled so bad to me. Still to this day, and it's been, 8 months, I cannot drink coffee. It's so gross to me. I've been able to do like the sugary Starbucks, frappuccinos here and there. But mainly I've been doing teas if I need a little caffeine because coffee smells so bad. So, along with all the nausea to the smells, I did have morning/all day sickness throughout the whole first trimester and a little bit into the second trimester. I was super sick all the time, like just the feeling of I had to throw up, but I didn't necessarily always throw up. If I waited too long to eat, then I definitely would throw up. Even if I ate, I would just throw up what I ate. So I probably actually threw up 2 or 3 times a week. So it wasn't every day, but I felt nauseous like every single day. It was terrible. But I hear that it's more common to be that sick with twin pregnancies versus one pregnancy. Another symptom was that I was super tired, and I actually didn't even realize how tired I was just because I was living it and it's just how I felt every day, until we went to the doctor, and the doctor would ask, what are the symptoms that you're having? Are you tired? And I would say, no, I think I'm fine. And my husband looked at me funny and he's like, every time I call you, you're napping. What do you mean you're fine? You're tired. And so then at that point, I realized, oh yeah, I guess you're right. I do have to nap like 1 or 2 times a day, which I work from home and it was winter. And so work for me was just a little slower anyway. So I was thankful that I was able to even nap. But along with the tiredness and the napping was also because I had really bad insomnia when I was pregnant. Well, the first trimester. It's not so bad now, but the first trimester I had really bad insomnia and I could not sleep. I would get up at like 3 or 4 in the morning and sit there wide awake. I couldn't go back to sleep, so I would just eat breakfast and start my day. And so then I would have to nap during the day because I was so tired from not getting any sleep at night. But my doctor ended up telling me to take Unisom. She said it's a safe sleep medication for pregnancy. But I am really weird about sleep medications in general. There's just been some family and friends that have had issues with them in the past that freak me out. And then I also just didn't want to take anything that I didn't have to take. You know, with IVF, you're already taking so many shots and injections, and I just didn't want to do anything extra that wasn't needed. So I didn't take it that often. I think I took it once or twice, but when I did take it, I did sleep a lot better. If I had a regular 9-to-5 job that I had to like really be awake for all day, I would have taken it more often. But because I can schedule my own appointments and I could schedule in my own naps, which sounds so funny, but yeah, I just chose to deal with it and nap when I needed to. So another thing that happened during the first trimester was I had a burst blood vessel, and I could not find a whole lot of information on it when it was happening or even after it happened, and I realized what it was. And so I really don't know how common it is, but my doctor said that it can happen with twin pregnancies because for me, what he assumed happened was the two placentas were trying to make room for each other, and they were attaching and reattaching and just trying to like figure out where they were going to go for the whole rest of the pregnancy. So it happened in the very beginning. We actually that day found out that we were pregnant with the twins. We had gone into the doctors. They said both heartbeats were good. Everything was looking healthy. And then that night, I had a whole bunch of bleeding. And so I thought that it was a miscarriage. And I just like was bleeding a whole bunch, and my doctor had me monitor it and, try to calculate how much blood was coming out. They were pretty confident that it wasn't a miscarriage, but they didn't know what it was at that point because they were like, we just saw you and everything looked good. And so I wasn't too scared, but it was hard because I could not find any information online about the burst blood vessel, which they didn't tell me that's what it was at the time. And so I ended up going into the doctor like 2 days later, maybe, or 3 days later, because they wanted to give it time to like see what else happened, if more bleeding happened or if it stopped. And so it ended up, I bled for a few hours and then ended up stopping, aside from just spotting, but the heavy bleeding ended up stopping. So after that, a few days later, we went in and they told us that it was a burst blood vessel and that there was more blood in there they could see in the ultrasound. And they just said, you're gonna still keep spotting. So I was spotting pretty much the whole first trimester due to that. And like I said, I really don't know how common it is, but apparently it can happen with twin pregnancies from the two placentas trying to find room in there and where they're going to live the rest of the pregnancy. So that's what happened to us. It was really scary and weird that I couldn't find information on it online anywhere. Everything that I could find just pointed to miscarriage. So that was another thing that happened during the first trimester. So one of the main things with IVF pregnancy that I did not realize was how many shots you continue to take all the way into the first trimester. So almost the whole first trimester, I was still doing injections and medicine and vaginal capsules and all this medicine still. And I did not realize that. I thought, you do the egg retrieval, you do the transfer, and then once you're pregnant, you're good to go. And that was not the case. We had injections the whole time, and the progesterone injections were tough. The progesterone and oil, those ones bruise. Or at least for me, you couldn't physically see the bruises too much on me. I know you can on other people, but they were there because if I just ran, it would hurt. And so I like to go running. That's like my main form of working out is running every morning. And I could not run while I was doing the injections because of the bruises. My hips would hurt. So even now, if I like jog a little, which I'm super pregnant, so I don't go jogging, but if I'm like running to the car or whatever, I can still feel the bruises. So I'll be very curious to see if I can pick up running after pregnancy and see how long those bruises last. I think it's from like the medicine sitting in your hips, but we'll see. But yeah, that was a tough part of the first trimester, was not being able to exercise the way I normally like to exercise because I had so much bruising going on. So I actually did not gain any weight during the first trimester. I actually lost like a pound here or there because of how sick I was and because I couldn't eat like normal foods. Everything smelled so bad and would make me sick that I lived off of like a little bit of bread and fresh fruit or smoothies, but just a little bit at a time. I couldn't eat a lot. So I didn't get any weight my first pregnancy. And then I started showing around 12 weeks. So I didn't really start showing until like towards the end of the first trimester as well. And my symptoms, all of, the insomnia, the nausea, all of that lasted until about 16 to 17 weeks. Everybody kept saying like, oh, when you get into the second trimester, you're not going to be sick anymore and you're going to be so full of energy and happy. And that was true, but wasn't true until well into the second trimester. So just be prepared for that. It's not like this flick of a switch that, it goes away right away. It took 16 to 17 weeks for me for all those symptoms to go away. So last, they say that when you're pregnant, you're more susceptible to getting sick and your immune system is lower. And apparently that's maybe what happened to me. I also was pregnant during wintertime flu season, things like that. I didn't have the flu, but I did get sick for like 14 days straight. And I got the antibodies corona test. It wasn't corona. Don't know what it was. I was just sick. I had a cold and a fever and all of that all the way for like 2 weeks. And that's the longest I've ever been sick. I kept thinking like, is this going to go away? This is crazy that I'm still sick, coughing, all of that. So I'm going to chalk it up to pregnancy and maybe my immune system being lower and causing me to be sick for a little longer than usual. So that is it for my recap of the first trimester and everything that I went through with IVF and twin pregnancy during the first trimester. I hope this helps anybody out there that is currently pregnant or thinking of getting pregnant and you're curious as to what some of the signs and symptoms are and what your experience might be like. So if you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask. I'm an open book and I would be happy to answer anything. I'm just excited and happy to give back to the IVF and mama community. So thank you so much for following along with my journey and our story, and I'll see you later.